Hello, good evening. We are about to get started. We're going to go live. Let's go live. Let's hope this works. Okay, good evening everybody. Welcome. Session of Outlandish Talmud Stories and Outstanding Life Lessons, part number 5. I'm just going to share this so that everyone who wants to watch it can watch it. Give me one moment and we're going to get going. Okay. In the meantime, you can download the source sheet. You have the link on Facebook, the link on YouTube, and that's the source sheet we're going to from to study today. All right. Good. So welcome everybody. Part number 5. Tonight's topic is all is good? That's a big question. That's a question that I think we think about or ask a lot of the times. Why do the righteous suffer? Why do the wicked prosper? The good people, why does it have to be me? These are big questions we think about and we ask a lot. How do we understand suffering? How do we understand what's good and what's bad? And what God does, is it good or bad? I want to share with you a story that's, I don't think it's a true story, but it's like a mashal, like a metaphor, a parable. So there is a very famous Mishnaic Talmudic teaching in Brachot that goes as follows. Kashem shemevarchin al hatova, kach mevarchin al hara'ah. Just like we bless God for good things that happen to us, so too we must bless God for. It's already a strong teaching. Now the Talmud asks, well, what do you mean just like? That's actually not true, because there are two different kinds of blessings. The blessing that we say on things that are good, we make a blessing, Baruch atah, blessed are you, Lord, HaMeitiv, you are good and you do good. But the blessing that we make on unfortunate, Baruch Dayan Emet, blessed is the true judge. You know that blessing from when someone passes away, but really. So the Talmud asks the question, what do you mean, just like as you make a blessing on something good, you make the same blessing on something bad? It's not true. There are two different blessings. The Talmud answers, listen carefully. It doesn't mean that it's the same version, the same nusach, the same text of the blessing, but it means that even though you're reciting different blessings, but you're reciting a blessing for God, and they have to both be equally the same level of simcha, of joy and of happiness and of acceptance. Think about it. When something good happens to you and you make your business deal and you earn a lot of money and you had a good fortune, you found something you're looking for, the vacation, how happy are you? Very. And we caution you, make sure you thank Hashem for that. Okay? So sure, you're going to gladly reach out to Hashem and say thank you. Says the Talmud. Well, when something bad happens to you, it has to be with the very same happiness, the very same enthusiasm. It's very hard to even say these words. Bad is happening and you make a blessing, Baruch Dayan Emet, blessed are you, true judge, but I thank you, Hashem, for this experience in my life. Why? Why is that so? And how do you even achieve that? How do you explain that? So they say in yeshiva, they say a story. It's not a true story, but it's a good one. There was once a Rosh Yeshiva, a very brilliant Torah scholar, Torah teacher. Very wealthy businessman. He had a lumber business, and he engaged in lumber trade from up the river to down the river, import, export. And so they had this section in yeshiva one day where the rabbi was teaching them about making a blessing not only for good things, but also for unfortunate experiences, also for bad things. A short while later, word was spreading on the street that this great rabbi, this businessman, he had a big shipment of lumber coming from up the stream, and of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And unfortunately, as it's coming down the stream, the boat sunk, and he lost the entire shipment. He lost all his money. He didn't know about this yet. And the people in the town were thinking, how are we going to break this news to the rabbi? This is disastrous. I mean, this news is worthy of giving you a heart attack, of passing out, who knows what. So one of the students in his yeshiva said, I have a way. I'm going to go talk to him. So the student knocks on his door. Rebbe, can I have a few words with you? Sure, sit down. I actually have a question in the learning, that what you were teaching us. Sure, what's the question? You taught us that just like you have to make a blessing for good things, so you have to make a blessing for bad things. I didn't understand that whole section. Could you? So the rabbi explains with great depth and breadth how God does everything. Good doesn't appear to be good, it's coming from God. If you want to bless God for the good things, you've got to welcome to bless and thank God for not such good things. The rabbi explains it at great length. And the student's sitting there and he says, I'm still not getting it. Could you explain it again? And he elaborates even more. And this goes on and on. The student doesn't get it, so the rabbi says, I'll give you an example when something bad happens to you. Instead of just shrugging or crying or bemoaning or screaming, you actually have to dance just like you would sing and dance when something exciting and fortunate happens to you. The student says, so that's the pshat? Is that what the Gemara is saying? He says, yeah, that's what the Gemara is saying. He says, Rabbi, I think it's time for you to sing and dance. There was a pause. I realized exactly what he was talking about, and he fainted. It's one of those passages that's easier to teach, but hard. No judgment on this rabbi, of course, but it's hard for everybody. So we're going to get into that today, and we're actually going to explore two teachings, one from the teacher and one from the student. Two great we've seen many times before, but one is a new one for today, and we're going to see how teacher and student taught and addressed ideas. Just wanted to point out a beautiful commentary I saw where the Talmud that says that this the blessings for good and for bad means you have to say them with the same simcha, same joy. But for those of you that like the gematria, the numerical values and the hints in words, the word simcha in Hebrew is spelled tzim, chet, hey. Now every letter, for example the letter shin, so its numerical value is 300. But you can write out the milui, the filling of the letter. So if you would write the letter shin in full, you would spell it shin, yud, nun, shin. Mem, mem. And chet would be chet, yud. Numerical value, you can address just the immediate letter, or you could talk about the filling of the word of the letter as well. Hope you're following. So shin, mem, chet, hey, of the word simcha, the numerical value of those letters is 520. 520 is the same numerical value as Dayan Ha'emet, the blessing that we make, the true judge of God, affirming our faith even in the most challenging of experiences. It's actually the same numerical value. I think that's a very beautiful idea, the simcha, the joy that you have to have. But the question is how and why. So let's go to our text. We have two stories for today, one the teacher, one the student. We're going to start with story number one. It's from Talmud, Ta'anit, page. A bit of background. This story is about a very wondrous person, a very interesting person who we do not encounter too much in the Talmud. Unlike the second story. The second story is about Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, we've spoken about him many times, we encounter him many times, one of the greatest sages of all time. But his was a rabbi named Nahum. Nahum, this is around the end of the 1st century after the destruction of the temple, and he's actually buried in Tzfat. Many of you may have been by his burial site. he had many interesting teachings, only a few that are recorded in the Talmud. I'll tell you one of them briefly. It's a very interesting concept. He was very creative in his Torah teachings, and many times in the Torah there's the word et, aleph, taf, or es, Ashkenaz, Sfarad, es, et. So, et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. So et is one of those words translated. It's like this adjoining word, and have the word. The verse could very often exist without the word et. So Nahum dedicated his life to interpreting every single et in the Torah. Whenever there's an et, the Torah would never add superfluous words. There must be a drasha, there must be some kind of sermon, some kind of lesson to learn out from this word et. There are many examples. For example, one of the commandments, the 10 Commandments, kabed, honor, et avicha, ve'et your mother. But it says et before each one. It could have said kabed, honor your father and mother. Why the et, avicha, ve'et imecha? So he says, et is coming to teach you, not only do you have to honor your father and your mother, but you have to also honor your older sibling, or your older brother. By the way, I don't know if you know, for those of you that are firstborns, the other siblings have to honor you, and there's reasons for that. The firstborn always take care of the family. Okay, so that's this Nahum, very creative. One day they came to him and they said, Torah, et Hashem Elokecha tira. The God, your Lord, your King, your God, you should have awe and reverence for God. But it says et before the words. So he asked him, what does this et come to? Then God, that we have to revere? Could we be including others as well? So Nahum thought about it and he said, no, this et there's no Russia, nothing to talk about over here. It's only God you have to revere. So the student said, but every single et in the Torah you interpret. Why this et you're not going to interpret? So Nahum said, hopefully, just like God will give me reward, just like it's an accomplishment that I have interpreted every single et in the Torah, now I'm going to get reward. Now my accomplishment is in this et, I'm not Russia, because I don't want to include anybody else on par with the awe for God. That's very interesting because his student, Rabbi Akiva, actually did learn something from this letter et. He took lesson from his teacher. He also interpret. He says, et l'rabot talmidei chachamim. Et is to include also Torah scholars. We have to have the same, I don't know about the same, we have to have respect for Torah scholars as much as just like we respect God. Meaning respect for their Torah knowledge and their Torah teachings, and that they're teaching us the Word of God in our lives. Okay. Now Nahum had a funny name. In the Talmud he's called Nahum Ish Gamzu, who's the person of, the master of Gamzu. What does Gamzu mean? What kind of... So some commentaries write that Nahum actually lived in a town called Gimzu, or Gamzu. It's the name of the town. So there were no surnames in those days. You want to refer to somebody, you call them by where they come from, or their trade or profession, or whatever. So Nahum the man from Gamzu. There were many Nahums from other towns. This Nahum from Gamzu. But this Talmud teaching is going to give us another reason why he was called Gamzu. Gamzu is actually a very special word, and let's pay attention to the story. I'm going to read it out now. They said about Nahum of Gamzu that he was blind. So the first story is going to be just a bit off topic, and then we're going to get into the main story, but I want to give you the whole spiel, the whole story. They said about Nahum Ish Gamzu that he was blind in both eyes, both his arms were amputated, both his legs were amputated, and his entire body was covered in boils. Some commentaries say that they were all amputated. Some say they were actually just paralyzed, so he couldn't move them. So he was lying on his bed, he was unable to move, and his body was covered in boils. Gruesome. As he was lying in a dilapidated house, and legs of his bed were placed in buckets of water so that ants should not climb onto him, and he wouldn't be able to, remove them, as he was unable to keep them off in any other manner. Once his students sought to remove his bread from the house and afterward remove his other vessels. Maybe they were taking him to a better home, to a hospital, wherever. Let's carry out the bed, the stretcher, and then we'll take out your bags, your suitcases, everything else. He said to them, my sons, remove the vessels first, and afterward remove my bed. As I can guarantee you that as long as I'm in the house will not fall. The house obviously was in poor shape, but Nachum was a very wondrous person, worthy of a miracle. He said, if I'm here, the house is not going to fall. But if you take me out first, the house might fall, and then you're going to lose all my vessels. Indeed, they removed the vessels first, and after they removed his bed, and immediately, see what kind of person that he was. Nachum Ish Gamzu, a very holy person. But why was he in such bad shape? So his student said to him, Rabbi, since you're evidently a holy, righteous man, as we've just seen, that as long as you're in the house it did not fall, why has this suffering befallen you? Why is God treating you this way? Why are you so sick? He said to them, my sons, I brought it upon myself. And he related to them the following. Once I was traveling along the road to my father-in-law's house, and I had with me a load distributed among 3 donkeys. One donkey with sacks of food, one with drink, and one with other delicacies, fruits and other things. A poor person came and stood before me on the road, and he said, Rabbi, sustain me. This person was very hungry. So I told him, wait, I'll help you out. Let me unload the donkey and take everything off and unpack my things, and then I'll give you something to eat. However, he said, he was telling his students, I had not managed to unload the donkey before the soul left his body. This person was starving to death, and he took his time. So I went and fell upon my face, and I said, may my eyes, which had no compassion on your eyes, be blinded. May my hands, which had no compassion on your hands, be amputated, or paralyzed, or stop working. May my legs, which had no compassion on your legs, be amputated, or paralyzed. Right? My eyes saw you, didn't help you right away. My hands could have right away gone into the sack and taken out some food for you. My legs could have jumped off in order to grab the food and run to you. My mind did not rest until I said, may my whole body be covered in boils. My whole body was negligent in not servicing you and helping you. Nachum of Gamzu prayed that his suffering might atone for his failure. His student said to him, even so, woe to us that we have seen you in this state. If not for your sake, for our sake, for your family's sake. He said to them, no, woe is me if you had not seen me in this state, as this suffering atones for me. You're seeing me in a state that I'm hoping will be of benefit to me in this world or in the world to come. And number 2, I hope you're going to learn a lesson from here. And the lesson you're going to learn is don't make my mistake that I made. What was my mistake? I procrastinated. I was lazy when it came to giving charity. Very interestingly, the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, it's a very dry, terse work. It's a legal code. There's no stories and history. It tells you what to do, what not to do. But in the laws of charity, it says that as follows. I have the quote. You have to be very cautious when giving charity, because it's possible that one could come to spill blood, that a pauper could die if you don't give him immediately, like in the case of Nachum Ish Gamzu, and it quotes our page Tanit, page 21a. The Shulchan Aruch references to this story, which is very uncommon for the Shulchan Aruch, and the answer is because this story is a model for charity. And sometimes we say, we come to shul and somebody wants money, and we say, or we're going into a store, and someone in front of the store wants money, and you say, when I come out, I'll give you. When I come out, if I have change or whatever, we'll see if I'm becoming in a more generous mood. You can't do that. The moment someone asks, you have to give money, and then sometimes you say, well, I don't know if they're deserving, and what are they going to use the money for? My opinion is, don't make those calculations. Nobody asked you to give him $100 million. Give him $1, give him $0.25. But what's he going to do with the money? People say he's going to buy drugs, who knows? Maybe, and maybe not. And maybe he's about to die and they'll give him something to eat. Okay? It's worth $1 or $0.25. Just give that money. All right, let me read this comment here. Yes. Yeah, that's a very interesting story of our mayor in Bruria. That's another story we're going to study another week. Thank you, Jordan. Okay, so that's the story. That's the lesson of the last part of Reb Nachum's life. But now let's read the story relevant to today's topic. The Gemara now inquires, and why did they call him Nachum of Gamzu? Why that name? The reason is that with regard to any matter that occurred to him, he would say, Gamzu l'tova. This too is for the good. Does the same haste apply to both Jews and non-Jews with regards to charity? So generally the answer is yes. Meaning, anyone is deserving of charity, and especially if it's a non-Jew and you can make a Kiddush Hashem and you can bring honor to Jewish people and you model behavior like that, and everyone says, look what a man of God does, and he helps those that are part of his community or aren't part of his community, 100%. Nowadays, for sure, we have to try to help whoever we can. Again, help in any way that you can. Good question. So why is Nachum called Ish Gamzu? Because anything that happened to him in life, he said 3 words. Gamzu l'tova. Which means this too, Gamzu, this too, l'tova, is for the good. He was that kind of positive guy. You know, we all have that kind of friend. Something could be going wrong and you get a phone call and this doesn't work out and you miss your flight and you miss the train and who knows what. Gamzu l'tova, it's okay. You know, you're busy panicking and screaming and nervous and anxious. And this person is cool like a Kit Kat. Once, the Jews wished to send a gift to the house of the emperor. They want to keep good relationships with their authorities. They said, who should go and present the gift? They said, let Nachum of Gamzu go because he's accustomed to miracles. So Nachum of Gamzu apparently not only had this positive attitude all the time, this too is for the good, that became his name. Everyone knew, Gamzu, Gamzu, this is the guy that's the Gamzu guy. He also somehow was surrounded by positivity, and wherever he went, he was affecting positivity, almost like miracles happened wherever he went. Let him go and give the gift to the emperor. So they sent him with a chest full of jewels and pearls as a gift to the emperor. And when he traveled, he spent the night in a certain inn. During the night, these residents of the inn arose and took all the precious jewels and pearls from the chest. They rubbed him entirely. But you shouldn't see that the chest is light in the morning. It feels light. So they filled it with earth. The next day, he's packing up his stuff and he picks up the chest, but he says, you know what, let me just check it. I guess he was responsible. He checks it and he sees what they had done. It's filled with earth. Where's all these thousands of dollars of gems and pearls? So what does Nachum respond? How would you respond if this was you? Well, Nachum responds in the classic Nachum way. He says, Gamzu l'tova. This too is for the good, and he's going to continue his journey to the emperor. How many of us would have turned around? Or run to the police station, filed a report, who knows what. Okay. When he arrived there at the ruler's palace, they opened the chest, a gift from the Jews, and they saw that it was filled with earth. The king wished to put all the Jewish emissaries to death. He said, the Jews are mocking me. You send me a delegation, you send me a gift with a chest. I open up the ribbon, I take off the lovely wrapping, and it's a chest full with earth. We're going to expel the Jews. Kill them all. Nachum of Gamzu said, Gamzu l'tova, this too is for the good. They threw Nachum into prison, and he was going to be given the death penalty. He was going to be hanged the next day. In the meantime, Elijah the prophet came and appeared before the ruler as one of his ministers. He said to the ruler, again, we've spoken about Elijah coming back. Here he's coming back in a body, in actually the appearance of a Roman minister. He comes back and he says, perhaps this earth is from the earth of their patriarch Abraham. And we know with Abraham, when he went to fight the battle against the 5 kings there's an issue with my microphone. Can you hear me? Please let me know that you can hear me. On the YouTube, I'm getting a message, there's an issue. Can you hear? Can you hear? Hear? No? Hello? Yes? No? Yeah, but bad. Oy vey. I'm sorry. Any clearer if I come any closer to the microphone? Not great. We hear, but not okay. So you can go to the Facebook Live. It should be much clearer over there. I'm sorry that this is happening. All right, it's on the Facebook Live. Kavana Center, I'm going to continue. So this Elijah the prophet comes to the emperor and says, maybe this is the chest, the same earth from Abraham. When Abraham was going to rescue his nephew Lot and was going to fight against the many kings and armies, he didn't have any warfare. He was equipped with miraculous earth that when he threw the earth, it would turn into spears, into arrows, and it became weapons mid-air, and it conquered the enemies. So the emperor was very intrigued, because when Abraham threw it, it turned into swords, and when he threw stubble, it turned into arrows, as it's written in the prophecy, right of the sages, because it says in the verse, his sword makes them as dust, his bow as the driven stubble, in the verse in Isaiah, referring to Abraham. So the emperor was very intrigued. So he says, let me try it out. And he tries it out, and sure enough, here's what happens. There was one province that the Romans were unable to conquer. They took some of this earth, tested it by throwing it at their enemies, and they conquered that province. Every time they threw earth, tens and thousands of swords and arrows. When the ruler saw that this earth indeed had miraculous powers, his servants entered his treasury and filled Nachum of Gamzu's chest with precious jewels and pearls and sent him off with great honor. Wow, a miracle happened. So they gave him in return, he was supposed to be bringing this chest of gold and silver. Now he's coming home with a chest of gold and silver. Thanks, Mike, for the message on Facebook. Okay, great. Now Nachum of Gamzu is going back home. He comes to spend the night at the same inn on his way there. And so all the residents tell him, what did you bring with you to the emperor that he bestowed you upon you? Such great honor. I see you're carrying back lots of wealth. What did you give the emperor? We were here a few weeks ago. We know what we put inside that chest. What happened over there? He said to them, whatever I took from here, I gave to the emperor. The same earth that you guys put in there. So when they heard this, the residents of the inn thought that the soil upon which their house stood had miraculous powers. If that earth impressed the emperor, and maybe they heard that the earth turned into warfare for the emperor because there was a big victory of the Romans, they said, well, let's dig up all the earth of this house and give it as a gift to the emperor because we can make a fortune. They actually tore down the inn and they dug up all the earth and they brought the soil underneath to the king's palace. They said to him, that earth that was brought here by this man, Nachum, that's from our property. Here, we're bringing you more. What they didn't realize was the miracle had only been performed in the merit of Nachum of Gamzu. This wasn't about that earth and their property. This was about the merit of the holy man Nachum. The emperor tested the inn's soil in battle, and it was not found to have miraculous powers. So he comes to battle, and I guess he's throwing a bunch of earth. I can't imagine that was a very successful battle. So he had these residents of the inn put to death. By the way, I think there's a version of the Talmud. It's not in this Talmud that I'm quoting here, but I've seen others quote a version that after this whole story happened, Nachum once again says, Gam Zul Tova, this too is for the good. But obviously, I think it was taken out. I don't know if it's accurate, and it's not a way to speak about the death of anybody. We have this concept, even at the downfall of your enemies, we don't rejoice. So we don't say those things even when our enemies suffer. So that's the story of Nachum Ish Gamzu. Why was he called Gamzu? Because he always said Gamzu Tova. And somehow he was surrounded by miracles also. So when he said everything is for the good, everything actually was for the good. And even when disaster could have happened. Was it his positive attitude that led to the miracles, like a kind of karma, like a kind of creating that energy where you think that way? We say in Yiddish, tracht gut, wird sein gut, think good, it will be good. Very famous Hasidic principle, life principle. So maybe Nachum succeeded at thinking good and then it always was good. Was it that way, or was God giving him miracles because of other reasons? But that's the story of Nachum. And the lesson is to say this kind of mantra. Imagine you say this mantra all the time. Gam zu l'tova. This too is for the good. No matter what happens. You could be in strife. This too is for the good. Someone else says that his name Ish Gamzu, if you take the letters of Gamzu, it also comes from the word mozeg. Mozeg in Hebrew means to dilute. So if your life is being filled with measurements of din, of harsh judgment of God, and you can dilute that with rachamim, with measurements of compassion, Similar to when the Torah teaches us that when God was going to create the world, He was going to create the world with midat hadin, in a way of strong discipline and harsh judgment. And then He saw that the world cannot survive that way. If you're going to treat everybody with harsh judgment, there's no perfect person in this world. Everyone's going to be suffering and getting in trouble for their sins. So God diluted that with a great measure of rachamim, of compassion. So Nachum, with his mantra, with his attitude, was able to dilute and instill and inject more of God's compassion into his life that helped benefit him even in the darkest of times. That's the story of Nachum Ish Gamzu, the teacher. Now, I want to share with you the story of his student, Rabbi Akiva. And it's a similar story, but very different. And we're going to, at the end, discuss the differences and the lesson, the takeaway we can take. Great? Let's go to story number 2. This is from Brachot 60b, 61a. And it's actually a continuation of the teaching I started off with, where it says you have to bless God for the good and for the bad. So the Gemara discusses that and brings this teaching of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, end of 1st century, beginning of 2nd century, student of Nachum Ish Gamzu. Rabbi Akiva said, one must always accustom oneself to say everything that God does, He does for the best. Rabbi Akiva also believed in a mantra, but his mantra was a little different. His mantra was in Aramaic, and it goes like this: Kol ma da'avid rachmana letav avid. All that God does, He does for the good. His teacher has said, Gam zul tova, in Hebrew. This is for the good. This is good. And Rabbi Akiva said, in Aramaic, a bit of a longer, different expression. But he didn't just say it once. If you look at the expression, ragil, he would say it all the time. Now, the Gemara relates a story. Like this incident, when Rabbi Akiva was walking along the road and came to a certain city, he inquired about lodging, and then he gave him any. It's very strange. A great rabbi comes to town, he knocks on the door, can I stay here for the night? No, everyone refuses him. So he's stuck, it's nighttime, you can't travel at nighttime. You go through the forest on your horse and wagon, it's dangerous, they're abandoned, you can't travel at nighttime. So he has to park somewhere, and no room in the city. So he went, so what did he say? As you can imagine, everything God does, He does for the best. Even though he's being rejected by every single member in town. So he went and slept in a field. Now he had with him, in his luggage, a rooster, a donkey, and a candle. A rooster to wake him up in the morning, a donkey he was traveling with, and the candle to travel at nighttime. So he finds a little camping spot and he parks his donkey there and he ties up his rooster to the tree, I guess, and he has his candle burning so he can see what's going on and maybe keep away wild animals. Maybe he was praying or studying. All of a sudden, a gust of wind came and extinguished the candle. A cat came, or a mountain lion or something, and ate the rooster. A lion came and attacked the donkey, ate the donkey. He's left without his candle, it's pitch black. Without his donkey, how's he going to continue to travel tomorrow morning? And without his rooster, how's he going to get up on time? I guess to get up to say the Shema right at sunrise. So what did he do? What would you do in that situation? Rabbi Akiva responded, everything that God does, He does for the best. That night, an army came and took the city into captivity. The whole city, we heard he was camping right outside the city, was captured by an army and taken into captivity. Rabbi Akiva was not in the city because no one gave him a bed to sleep that night. He was sleeping outside the city. It turned out that Rabbi Akiva alone, who was not in the city and had no lit candle, noisy rooster, or donkey to give away his location, was saved. He was upset that they didn't give him a place to stay. Thank God he was outside the city that night. He didn't have a candle. Thank God. They would have seen him. His chicken would have made noise. His donkey would have made noise. And because of all the misfortunes that happened to him, he was saved. He said to them, I'm not sure to who, maybe his family when he got back, he said to them, didn't I tell you, everything that God does, He does for the best. A beautiful story. A strange story, by the way. There's a lot of questions about that story. Why did nobody let him in? And which city was this? Where was he? Why is he traveling? Why is with a candle? I mean, if he doesn't plan on traveling at nighttime, he's going to be in some kind of a lodging. The chicken, why is he carrying? If he's going to be staying in a town, there's other chickens that can wake you up. You don't need to carry your own alarm clock. I mean, there's other chickens. And there's a lot of questions on this story, which, by the way, it's something that I'm going to explore further, hopefully in a class in a few weeks' time, related to Tisha B'Av and the destruction of the temple. But let's leave it for now. Let's just take the takeaway. Similar teachings from teacher and student. Yet, I'll tell you one little beautiful thing in this story. I'm reminded now. What are the three things that he brought with him that he thought are to save him and to help him? So he brought the shraga. In Aramaic, the shraga is the candle. He brought the chamra, the donkey, and he brought the tarnagola, which is the chicken. Those are the words in the original Talmud. He thought these three things are for his good. Now, if you notice, the first letter of these three things, shraga, chamra, and tarnagota, is shin chet taf, which spells shachat, which spells destruction. Sometimes it's those things in life that you think you need are going to help you, are going to save you. Sometimes they're the cause for your destruction, which they would have been if he would still have them that night. And then the three things that came to devour and to destroy his property and his prized possessions were what? Were ruach, wind, aryeh, lion, and shunra, the wild cat. Resh, aleph, shin, which they spelled rosh. Rosh means a head. Rosh means you're up ahead. Rosh means you are saved and you are in a good place. And it's those three things that he could have faltered. How dare you extinguish my candle and eat my lion, my donkey, my chicken. He could have been very upset, but it's those three things that brought him salvation, which is the lesson that sometimes it looks harmful, but it may be that which is helping you, and that which looks like it's helping you may sometimes be your downfall. So there's a hint in the very words of the story about this lesson of Rabbi Akiva. Actually, some commentaries see much more in this story, and they see it not just as a small story, a micro story of Rabbi Akiva, but they see this as a macro story on a larger level, on a metaphoric level of the Jewish people, of the three different destructions of the Jewish people. First, there were the Babylonians, led by Nebuchadnezzar, that destroyed the first temple. And that is like the aryeh, the lion, eating his donkey, where the donkey is often a reference to the Jewish people or to salvation, like Mashiach and like Abraham and others, and Moses that walked on a donkey. And the aryeh, the lion, in scripture is the metaphor for Nebuchadnezzar, for the wicked Babylonians, and the lion destroying the donkey is the Babylonians destroying the first temple. Then you have the wind that blows out the candle. The wind is a reference to the Greek Assyrians, to the Yevanim in the Hanukkah story, where with their Hellenist culture and ideas were very tempting and were very attractive, but at the end of the day, it was all like wind, ruach, which means it was all empty. It wasn't filled with, there was no God, there was no truth to their ideas, as attractive as they were. And they were trying to Hellenize many Jews. And the wind extinguished the candle, which the candle refers to ner mitzvah v'torah, or the candle is a metaphor for mitzvot, and for the soul, and for spirituality, and for godliness. And the wind extinguishes the candle was the battle that the Yevanim had against the Jewish people. And finally, the shunra, the wild cat that devours the chicken, is the metaphor for the Romans who come and destroy the second temple and the Jewish people and their sovereignty in Israel. Here the clue is that shunra is the word for the cat. It's a bit of a stretch maybe, but this is what I saw. So the Romans come from Edom, the nation of Edom. Edom is the nation of Esav. As we know, Esav, the son of Yitzchak, brother of Yaakov. And Esav was born, the Torah says, Rishon. He was born the first. Later he sold the firstborn to Yaakov, but he was born first. Rishon is the same letters as Shunra. Shunra is the wild cat. So Shunra, if you mix the letters, you get to Esav, and Esav is the father of Edom, of the Romans. The Romans have destroyed the second temple and sovereignty in Israel. So that's a very beautiful thing, which I I was thinking about more now because we're actually coming up soon to the period called the 3 weeks. Thursday is the fast day of the 17th of Tammuz, when the Romans breached the walls of Jerusalem and came to invade Jerusalem and destroy the temple. And in 3 weeks' time will be Tisha B'Av. Very sad days of the destruction of the temple, and we're going to be learning more stories about that in the future. So now, let's summarize these two stories and come away with an awesome, powerful idea and lesson. Nahum's teaching, Gam Zo Tova, and Rebbe Akiva's teaching seem very similar, yet they're different. Number one is in Hebrew, one's in Aramaic. Now, most people in those times spoke Aramaic. Hebrew was not the common language anymore. Why is Nahum teaching Gam Zo Tova in Hebrew and Rebbe Akiva teaching is in Aramaic? Also, Nahum so let me tell you like this. This is very, very deep. I'm going to read you a teaching of the Baal Shem Tov that's somewhat esoteric and a little bit Kabbalistic, and then we're going to break it down into something very much more practical that we can understand. This whole concept that we're saying that when bad things happen to you, it's good, it's also good, or it's for the good. You have to be very careful about this, okay? This is not a license to stop empathizing with people. First of all, you have to realize this is a lesson for yourself. When you are going through a great state of suffering, when you're being bothered by something, you're in a terrible state, business, family, health, whatever, how am I going to get out of this one? If you have the ability, the maturity, to be able to rise to the occasion and find spiritual strength and fortitude in your faith, and to live with this message of this too is for the good, this is from God, great. You should do that. And that's the lesson takeaway from these stories. But be careful. This doesn't apply to somebody else. Meaning, if someone else comes to you and pours their heart out and is crying and sobbing about their very difficult state in life, don't ever turn to them and say, don't worry, Gam Zo Tova, this too is for the good. That would be cruel. That's not nice. Nahum never said it about somebody else. He said it about himself. There's a story of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov and his wife once adopted a girl who was orphaned. And she was neglected for a very long time, living on the streets. No one was taking care of her, and they brought her into the house. And in the morning, Baal Shem Tov's wife was combing the little girl's hair. And you can imagine it wasn't just an aesthetic beauty comb. Her hair had been in knots and tangled up because she wasn't cleaned or taken care of for a long time. So as she's combing, it was hurting the girl. The girl was screaming out and shouting. And the Baal Shem Tov walked by. He heard her shouting, but he didn't say anything. You imagine, it hurts. I mean, of course it hurts if you don't brush your hair for a very long time. And apparently it is told that the Baal Shem Tov was punished for his lack of sensitivity. No, he wasn't supposed to tell his wife to stop. No, it's a good thing that she's doing. Nothing wrong with combing the hair. But if she's in pain, you have to reach out and say something to the young girl. I'm so sorry this is happening. Cry with her. Give her a hug. Tell her you're thinking about her. Such a powerful idea. They say the story of a great tzaddik, and they asked him a question. The question was, we know that everything Hashem creates in life, there is a positive, holy application of this thing. Okay, no matter what it is, like the Talmud says that there's a non-kosher food, but you can find a positive, holy aspect to it, etc., etc. So they asked him, you have something called atheism, where someone doesn't believe in God at all. What could be a positive, holy lesson and aspect of atheism that seems to be contrary to everything we believe in? So this great tzaddik answered, sometimes in life, we all have to be atheists. When? You know when? When you're going through a great state of suffering, you have to be the biggest believer and turn to God and say, this is from God and God help me over here. But when your friend comes to you and shares with you how much they're suffering, don't ever tell them, I'm going to pray for you. God's going to help you. Don't pull out the God card. Then you become an atheist. Pretend there is no God. And you ask yourself, what can I do to help that person? Try to make yourself available to help them. And in that way, you are like an atheist. So, but let's talk about ourselves. This teaching of Gamzul Tova, what does it mean that God is doing something bad to us, but it's also good? I mean, we know that God is good. So if God is good, God can't do bad. Here's what the Baal Shem Tov says. Baal Shem Tov says, why the different languages, the different expressions of the teacher Nahum and the student Rabbi Akiva? So he says, every time you're having a difficulty in life, you're having a challenge, God is reaching out to you with a energy of din, of a harsh, disciplined energy. How do you remove, how do you alleviate, how do you spare yourself from this harsh treatment? Is through finding within this din, within this harsh treatment, chesed. There is a core and a spark and a state of God's chesed, of God's kindness, hidden underneath. It could be under many layers of this din. And if you can do that, then you transform the din, you transform the harsh treatment into chesed, into kindness and compassion and sweetness. And he said, Nahum was different than Rabbi Akiva. Nahum had the ability to transform, literally, during the state of din, during the state of great harsh judgment, he could find the spark of chesed and transform and sweeten the din into rachamim, compassion and sweetness. Nahum could do that. But most people are unable to do that. Most people are unable, during this harsh experience, to discover its sweetness. What most people can do is, in hindsight, they can turn around and say, this led to something good. The difference is, when you're going through a very difficult experience, can you say, this is good? Or you say, no, this is bad. There's a sickness, there's a disease, there's an illness, I've missed my flight, I'm in pain, my business is suffering, everything is going wrong. But you could say, this will be for good. Right, so Nahum said, Gamzul Tova, this is good. So he said it in Hebrew, in the holy language, in Lashon HaKodesh, which was a person of that stature. When you speak a holy language, sometimes when we speak teachings of Torah, and we quote passages in their original language, sometimes we say, don't do that. Because when you quote holy words, you mean big ideas, you mean big things, but you're not really grounding it in your own life in a very practical way. We're not holding on that level. Tell me what it means to you and to me down here. Nahum was up there. He could quote the holy language because he saw the sweetness in the actual experience. He saw that no matter what God was doing to him, it was good, it was sweet. Rabbi Akiva was not holding on that level. Rabbi Akiva was a generation after Nahum. This is a generation further away from the destruction of the temple. So the light of God in this world was getting darker and darker each day. Rabbi Akiva was not living as such a spiritually enlightened person like his teacher was. He could not say, I see that the harsh experience is sweet. I can't see that. But in Aramaic, in the regular common language, the way we talk about things on our level, the way they're relevant and applied to us, I can say that all that God does, He does for the good. I can't say it is good, I'm not holding on that level, but I do know with faith that it's for the good. You see, God does not punish. It's a very important idea. A few days ago I was learning with somebody, and he was having a challenging time. And he said, Rabbi, do you think this is a punishment from God, what I'm going through? So I said, well, my initial instinctual reaction was, I don't speak for God, and I have no idea. But then I said, actually, I can speak for God. I found the courage. And I said, no, it's not a punishment. How do I know? Because God does not punish. We use the word punishment the way we understand punishment. Like a kind of penalty. Sometimes to harm or to get back at somebody. But God doesn't punish. God is good and God only does good. And God brings us here to this world and God says, I'm giving you your life, your resources, the tools you need to succeed in life because you have a mission. And I'm going to do everything that needs to be done to get you there so you can succeed in your mission. Sometimes I'm going to have to treat you harshly. Maybe you're going off course. Maybe you're not living deep enough. Maybe you haven't struggled enough. Maybe you haven't discovered what your true ability is. Maybe you haven't discovered who you really are or can be. So I may press you hard and crush you, says God. I'm not punishing you. I'm trying to set you up for your success. I'm trying to bring you to where you need to be in life. I want you to live deeper. Now, Chas v'shalom, I'm not explaining God at all because only God can do that. And I don't wish upon anybody a harsh experience. And like I said earlier, I cannot tell you if you're going through a harsh experience, this is for the good. It's not for me to tell you. I can only tell it to myself. But I'm explaining the concept to myself. And if you want, you can learn from this for yourself. That when we're going through a very difficult moment or experience, recognize, for sure this is for the good, as Rabbi Akiva would say, and this actually is good. Now that we may or may not be able to really appreciate. It's a truth. We can learn from Nachum. It's a truth. But, imagine a good example. A woman is going through labor pains. She's about to have a baby, and she's in excruciating pain. Well, how do you talk to your wife? How do you tell such a woman? So, for sure this is for the good. So you're going to have your baby. Can I tell her, this is good, the pain is great, enjoy it, rejoice, laugh? First of all, don't say that, ever. Empathize, right? Of course. Always empathize with somebody. Feel their pain. Whenever someone's in pain, you have to feel their pain. That's a measuring stick of who you are, what kind of person you are. Can you feel someone else's pain? It's very important. But to tell ourselves, to recognize Zula Tova, this is good. That's what we were learning from Nahum. And God only does good. And if you have to, like a parent has to sometimes treat a child very harshly. If a parent has to punish a child, you're grounding a child, you're who knows what. What does it mean you're punishing them? Think about, as a parent, it's very important. If you are, as a parent, behaving in a way that I'm getting back at my child, I'm teaching them a lesson, but not a good lesson, I'm venting my anger, you're a lousy parent. Okay? Never do that. You want to apply some kind of teaching and discipline to your child, think about a harsh measurement that is actually going to teach them something, that is actually going to put them in a better place later than they were before. And if they're not going to end up in a better place later than they were before, then your whole treatment was lousy and uncalled for, and you should never have done it. You have no right to do it as a parent. So if you're going to ground your child or get them in trouble because they did this in school, or they got this mark, or they weren't behaving nicely, whatever, think about it. What kind of treatment is that? It better bring them a lesson and a benefit to later. And that's how God behaves to us as a parent to children. This is good. It's a very hard thing to say. Nahum could say it. He said it in the holy language. Rebbe Akiva says, we can't say that. At least we're not on the level of that. But we can say this will be for the good. And that is a very powerful consolation. And will we always discover later in life, in hindsight, why that very terrible experience was good? Not always. No. We might sometimes. We often do. Sometimes we look around and say, wow, that really taught me something, that made me stronger, that pushed me further, it brought me an opportunity I wouldn't have had beforehand. Sometimes. But sometimes you should know that it's going to be a lousy, terrible, tragic, sad experience, and you're not going to feel like you gained anything from it, and that's not for you to understand. That's for God to understand. So that's the story of Nahum, Ish Gamzu. That's the story of Rabbi Akiva. Very powerful ideas that we need to learn from in life. And as we started off, it's easy to talk, right, as the rabbi, but to walk the walk, and to say, he fainted in the end. That's something we all have to work on, and we work on our faith, and recognize that there's many ways that God is orchestrating our life, and ultimately it's to set us up for success. And sometimes He has to maneuver things in ways that we don't want, or didn't ask for, didn't expect, because it's bringing us to a better place, to a better selves. So, as the Talmud says, bless God, try to thank God, rise to the occasion, accept it with simcha, with joy, and recognize that at the end of the day, God is dealing with you. He hasn't forgotten about you. At least He's treating you. A parent, even treating a child harshly, is much better than a parent who's ignoring or forgotten about a child. The curse would be, the bad would be if God forgot about you. Here He's remembering you. We often say, What's the opposite of love? Very important teaching. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is apathy, is ignore. If I love you, so I reach out to you and I care about you and I embrace you lovingly. If I practice hate against you, God forbid, you're still something in my life. I still care about you. I care about you enough to hate you. And that takes up a lot of energy in me. If I really didn't care about you, if you really were not important to me, I wouldn't love you and I wouldn't hate you. I would ignore you. That's the opposite. So when God is reaching out to you and treating you, if it's in a fortunate way, well, great. Thank Hashem. But even if it's with sorrow, it's with pain and difficulty, Hashem is still reaching out to you. Hashem is involved in your life. You're on His agenda. So you're important enough that He's dealing with it. And He's recognizing you're there and He's pulling strings in your life. You didn't understand it? Okay. What's the surprise if we didn't understand the ways of God? So it's a hard concept, but it's an important one. We all live with this thing. We have to practice this mantra. That's the final conclusion I want to say. Practice the mantra. Gam Zula Tava. Say it and say it and say it again. It'll help you. And study these stories and study other parts of Torah that talk about these things. It'll help you in life. Thank you for joining. I want to wish you a good night. And we'll see you next week, Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. sharp. All the best.